Do you want to know a shocking truth? In the 19th century, girls as young as 7 years old could legally marry in the US with parental consent. In history, early marriages existed across the world, but what did they really mean? Let's explore the truth. In pre-modern societies, early marriage arrangements were widespread, but they weren't always what we imagine today. Betrothals often occurred in childhood, while consummation was delayed until physical and emotional maturity. For example, in medieval Europe, King Richard II of England married Isabella of Valois when she was just 6 years old, but their marriage wasn't consummated until years later. Similarly, St. Augustine, one of Christianity's most celebrated figures, was once engaged to a 10-year-old girl. These practices reflected the social and cultural norms of the time. Even as recently as the 19th century, such norms persisted in Western societies. In Delaware, for instance, the minimum marriage age was 7 years old, with parental consent until 1929. These laws might shock us today, but they show how different historical attitudes toward marriage were. This wasn't unique to Europe or the United States. In 7th century Arabia, early marriage arrangements were common, often for tribal alliances or family security. However, consummation was delayed until puberty, when the girl was considered physically and emotionally ready. These customs reflected the practical realities of societies focused on survival and communal ties, where marriage was a family or tribal decision, not solely a personal one. Let's now address the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad to Aisha. Critics often single this out, but his marriage fit perfectly within these cultural norms. The marriage was arranged when Aisha was young, but it was consummated years later once she reached maturity. In the context of 7th century Arabian society, this was not unusual and was widely accepted. Aisha was not just a wife, she was a scholar, leader, and teacher. She narrated over 2,000 hadiths and became one of Islam's greatest contributors to its intellectual and spiritual legacy. Far from being oppressed, Aisha herself described her marriage as loving and respectful. She played a pivotal role in shaping Islamic teachings and remains a towering figure in history. The first recorded Western criticism of the Prophet's marriage emerged in 1905 with the writings of British historian David Samuel Margoliouth. This indicates a span of approximately 1,273 years during which this aspect of the Prophet's life was not a focal point of critique in Western discourse. So why is this criticized today? Many apply modern standards to historical practices while ignoring similar norms in their own histories. For centuries, European nobility arranged child marriages for alliances, and even in the United States, laws allowed early marriages well into the 20th century. The selective focus on the Prophet Muhammad reflects bias more than genuine concern for historical truth. Understanding history requires context and honesty. Instead of judging the past by today's standards, let's approach it with clarity. If you found this explanation insightful, like and share this video to help replace misinformation with truth.